Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, certified pop princess, my brother Mike.
Hey, I'm Madonna rolled up with Taylor, rolled up with Beyonce, rolled up with everybody, rolled up with Michael Jackson, rolled up with everybody else that's been awesome in pop music.
Yeah,
I
with
yeah.
all the mental health stuff of Britney Spears. So
Yeah, exactly.
he's one day away from
with
shaving
the
his head and
sophistication of a Britney Spears.
running off to fucking who knows, Guadalajara, I don't know, wherever you're going. Mike's gonna be there. Fishnets
Tijuana
and a shaved head. You won't even
There you
recognize him. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Anyway, on this week's episode, we're gonna look back at the ALDS, the American League Division Series. As painful as that might be, we'll do that for a second. And then revisit our preseason predictions. This is kind of our end of the season wrap-up show. And so we're going to do our least favorite thing, or at least my least favorite thing.
I
go
love
back
it.
to the beginning of the season predictions and see how those panned out for us. Usually it's poorly for me. And then we're going to preview this offseason a little bit because there are no games to preview. We're just going to talk about what the Royals are going to be looking to do this offseason, hopefully. I do want to give you a programming note for those of you who are new to the Royals weekly podcast. In the off season, we move our Monday episodes to just once a month. So instead of coming out with a show every single Monday, we'll come out with a show once a month. It'll always come on Mondays, or typically. And then because there's just less news in the off season, there's less to talk about. There's less to be doing every week. And so we're only going to put out an episode for everyone once a month. However, for our paid Substack subscribers, we're still going to be coming out with weekly episodes during the off season. So we'll have weekly episodes coming out every Thursday for paid Substack subscribers. If you're interested, go to our Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. $5 will get you a weekly episode every Thursday morning, plus articles that come out at least once a week and sometimes more than that. And now that we have time to write in the off season, not watching 3 hours of a game every night and doing all this recording actually frees up some time to do writing if we would like to. And so Mike, I hope will write some, maybe at least when school ends for the semester. I'm going to write some more when I get the time. So make sure you're checking out that Royals Weekly Substack if you're interested in hearing about the Royals all off season. We'll be putting out a lot of content through the Substack. Also, we need to remind you that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup, breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, NBA, all the way to political props. You can bet on politics on this website.
We're doing good things, America. We're doing good things.
When the game's over, head on over to their online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of their over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet online, the game starts here. Well, the news is out. The Royals dropped the ALDS 3-1 to the New York Yankees with the offense struggling to produce. Everybody watched. I had a great time going to one of the games, even though they ended up losing that game. But people were feeling a little bit of the sads when it happened. Mike, what are your thoughts looking back on that ALDS?
Well, I would love to say that the Royals were the Yankees' equal. I wish that was like my takeaway, because I think that is a takeaway you can have. Whether it was the games that we played the Yankees in the regular season or in this ALDS, I don't feel like the Royals were overmatched. Do I feel like they were as deep as a team? I don't. I don't feel like they were as deep in the bullpen or the lineup especially. But I feel like the Royals had a talented enough team to hang with the Yankees. It just didn't come out our way. I mean, if you get that out call reversed in game one, it's a completely different series. Okay, and obviously that should have been the case. But I think you come away from this ALDS thinking of the lack of offensive production. We just could not, as much as JJ and Matt Quatrero tried to spit and cut and glue and duct tape over that Vinny Pasquantino injury, we were never the same after that offensively. And even before that, there was inconsistencies offensively. After that, it was inconsistent and just barren. You just didn't have the horses when you didn't have Vinny Pasquantino in there. And all you were was one Bobby Witt Jr. or Salvador Perez slump away from really struggling to score runs. And when the ALDS came and Salvi wasn't hitting quite like he normally does and Bobby wasn't hitting quite like he normally was, you knew it was going to be trouble because Vinny wasn't back to where Vinny needed to be.
Yeah, we mentioned this and so many other things going into that ALDS. We mentioned like, hey, if the heart of this lineup isn't hitting, they're going to really struggle with a team like the Yankees. In a best of three, like the wild card series was, sure, they could just go out and have two amazing pitching performances from their bullpen and starters and squeak by the Orioles, a team that was struggling coming into the playoffs anyway, right? But when you're going up in a best of five, a longer series against a team like the Yankees that has that kind of talent, especially in the heart of their lineup, you have to produce runs. That you're going to have to just score some. And those three, Vinny Pasquantino, Bobby Witt Jr., and Salvador Perez, were just not able to do it. And what came down to it, you're right, Mike, they just didn't. We said to start the year they needed a whole bunch of things to go right in order for them to get anywhere. So many of them went right.
And they did.
So many of them did. But when that one thing went wrong, when Vinny Pasquantino got hit by that pitch, or no, was he hit by a pitch?
He got hit by the runner, remember?
That's what
the throw that went into the runner.
Yeah. Yeah. When Vinny Pasquantino got his arm sort of tangled up with that runner going through first and broke his thumb, that was it. That was the one thing going wrong that was too much. And they couldn't handle the lack of depth that their lineup would ultimately have without a Vinny Pasquantino. It hurt them down the stretch. It hurt them in the playoffs, and ultimately it sank the chances in the ALDS when Bobby Witt Jr. wasn't hitting and Salvador Perez also was not hitting. That was just what it was going to ultimately boil down to. Some people are going to bring up the walks from the pitching staff in that ALDS. Yeah, that
was important. Yeah,
it was important. But ultimately, they held the Yankees to 3 runs or less in 3 of those 4 games. I mean, that's pretty impressive, especially considering one of those, or 2 of those games were played in Yankee Stadium, which is a very offensive park, and the Royal Stadium is actually pretty offensive too, just not for home runs. And so, yeah, it wasn't really a pitching problem; it was an offense problem. All that being said, Mike, we had some strong performers. Who was your strong performer for this last week?
Well, I just had to give him a shout out because it seemed like the runs that were scored, he was in the middle of it. Yuli Gurriel, the old man, the old scrap heap pickup, 3 for 14, and was a positive spot in that time when Vinny wasn't in. He wasn't going to hit us any power, but he scored 4 runs. He had a double. He had 2 walks and no strikeouts. He was constantly on base, it felt like, in September and then into October. And he was a big boost for the little bit of offense that they could muster. But, I mean, you saw it. He hit the hardest ball he hit for us all year in that Yankees series, and it was a double off the left field wall. And at no point did I go, I think he can hit a ball harder than that. I was actually thinking, I didn't think he could hit a ball that hard. And I think it went 96 or 98 miles per hour off the bat. Like, that is everything Yuli Gurriel has now. And he gave it all to us. And so thank you to Yuli. If this is the end of his baseball career in the Major League Baseball, I don't think that's anything to sneeze at.
What a career it has been, very, very.
He won a batting title, didn't he?
A lot to be
World
proud
Series
of him,
batting title.
Yeah, he's done a lot in baseball, both here and back in Cuba. And so, nothing to sneeze at with his career. And so, good job by him, and good job showing up for the Royals, who needed him pretty badly. My strong performer for the week is a pitcher, which makes a little more sense to me than a hitter. I'm like, I don't know why you chose to go with a hitter.
Yeah, I went through the pitchers too, and I was
struggling. It's hard to pick a pitcher because none of them threw more than like 4 or 5 innings all week.
Yeah.
But I went with Angel Zerpa, who threw 3 innings this last week, gave up 1 hit, 0 runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Zerpa just was a kind of a revelation for them after he came back from AAA. I think he was down in AAA, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And was just lights out down the stretch last week or 2 of the season. And then in this playoffs, it seemed like when they got in trouble in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th inning, they were turning to Zerpa a lot. And he was coming through for them, throwing 97, 98 mile an hour sinkers, sliders, having a lot better command than he showed before he went down, and was just like exactly what they needed. A lot of things turned this bullpen from a damn nightmare in the first half to somewhat of an asset right here at the end and in the playoffs. And one of those things was the progression of Angel Zerpa. They got Lucas Erceg, and that was huge. Yeah, they got Chris Bubich, and that was huge. John Schreiber turned it around after he came off the IL. But Zerpa as another option for them looked like, and you saw the pieces of it there before he went down. The fact that he's throwing 97, 98 now, that's an asset. That's a good thing. The fact that he has a slider, that he has a changeup he can go to, and all those sort of things, those are all assets. and you wondered, will he put it together? He's still pretty young. Will he put it together and show that he can be a real asset in the bullpen? He did it for him at the end of September and in the playoffs. So hopefully that's a good sign for him moving forward. Mike, that's the strong performers. We got to talk about the weak ones too. You didn't put a name down here, just some numbers. I'm guessing you'll recognize who those numbers signify. Who was your weak performer for the week?
Well, let's see if you can recognize it, Mr. Baseball Man. He was 1 for 16. He had 1 double, 1 RBI, 1 walk, and 7 Ks.
I'm gonna say Vinny.
It was Vinny Pasquantino.
Yeah.
Very good. And I put him on here not to pile on or anything like that, but you and I talked about it. We needed, and it's not his fault.
It's not his fault.
I applaud Vinny Pasquantino for going out there and trying to do everything he could to help to will this baseball team through that round of the playoffs. And it would have been really fun to see him if he could have made it to the next round, because I feel like he was going to get better and better as they went. The thumb was going to get healthier, and the timing was going to get better as they went through. But yeah, that wasn't what the team needed right there. And then again, no fault of his. He went out there and battled.
And to be fair to the team, they didn't have better options.
There was no better option. Yeah,
it's
not like you made a wrong choice.
No, it was better to gamble on Vinny coming back and just hitting the ground running than it was to gamble on having some sort of rotation of Robbie Grossman and someone else like hitting for you in there.
Yeah, I agree completely. And so that isn't to dog on Pasquantino. He's a warrior. He's a fighter. We know he wants to win. We know he'll do anything to do that. But it was not a good week, and not really the week that the Royals needed to win that series.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about another guy who didn't really give them what they needed. And I mean this as an all-season kind of thing, but it really showed this last week, and that's Hunter Renfroe. Hunter Renfroe went 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts. So you might say, well, he didn't do enough to have a bad week. The point is they didn't play him the whole week. So this is a guy they signed for $8.5 million. And when they signed him, they're like, well, he can be a middle of the order bat. He was not a middle of the order bat for them all season. He ended up becoming essentially a role bench player. I mean, like a 26th guy, if that, on the bench. I mean, Garrett Hampson had more plate appearances than him during this ALDS, And so the question then becomes, well, what value did they get out of Hunter Renfroe this year? There was a stretch there of
I can tell you
2 months where people were like, this is a great signing. And I was like, hold on. We don't know yet. His defense is bad. His offense has been going okay for a couple months, but not great. And then he goes into another big slump again. He got hurt. He had another big slump. And it was like, okay, he's been basically useless. Mike, give us that value number. What's he been value-wise?
0.3 F-WAR is what he was.
0.3 F-WAR. So the Royals paid $8.5 million this season, and they're going to have to surely pay again next year because he's got a player option for 0.3 F-WAR. I'm going to tell you right now, there's not a model out there that says that 0.3 F-WAR is worth $8.5 million. Okay. not even close. I told everybody back earlier in the year when they were crowing about how great he is, wait till the end of the season. If he makes it to 1 F-WAR, I'll say that it was worth it. It was not worth it. Okay. Just saying that right now. Mike, let's get off the saddies
and
here.
And really, here's the crazy thing you got to think about. As far as moves that JJ missed on, that was, I mean, you can't really point to many of them because he did a great job on the offseason. Did a great job during the season, but the Hunter Renfroe deal was not a good one. I would even turn back and say the Garrett Hampson deal was a hell of a deal. 1, because you spent a lot less money, and 2, because he was able to give you some stuff.
Go look up Garrett Hampson's. Go look up Garrett Hampson's value. I'll be curious to see where it rates next to Hunter Renfroe's. Now, this isn't a apples to apples because Hampson's versatility defensively has its own value that won't show up in like a WAR rating, but I'm curious on this one.
2024.5.
Okay, so Garrett Hampson was more valuable than Hunter Renfroe, even in that metric, which is like, and he cost $6 million less. And so there you go. Mike, what was your theme for this week?
Oh, I went to a wonderful, hang on, let me get back to it. I went to a wonderful song called Marry Me by a band that I've used before for themes because they do great songwriting and things like that. But it's the Drive-By Truckers. And I watched this documentary about that band from way back in the day called The Secret to a Happy Ending. But they mentioned this thing about what it's like to be a constantly touring rock band and what that can do to relationships, both within the band and outside. But it made me think about this team and how there's so many young players on this team, and you could just tell how badly they wanted this. But baseball, there's and all professional sports, there's one happy team at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
One, you know? And so the line from the song is rock and roll means well, but it can't help telling young boys lies. And all I could think was replace rock and roll with baseball.
Yep.
And you get baseball means well, but it can't help telling young boys lies. We all think we're going to be a superstar when we're 5 years old. We all think we're going to be able to go play college ball. We all think we're going to make it to Major League Baseball. And then when you do, you all think you're going to win the World Series. But for some of those guys on that team, and maybe it's even the young guys, that'll be the last opportunity they get. And that's sad.
It is sad. It's great and it's sad, right? It's great because you got that opportunity. You know, you got to play playoff baseball. You got to go to the playoffs. That's wonderful. But the thing is, when you get a little taste of success like that, when you win an improbable wild card series, people start to believe you're the team of destiny or something. You're like, you know, we can do this. We're going to do this, and that's a great belief to have because you kind of got to have that belief in order to get there, right?
Well, especially since the last two times we made it to the playoffs, we went to the World Series.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the truth of the matter is, and Mike hit it right on the head. There's only one happy team at the end of the year, right? And so it doesn't work out for a large everyone but one person, one team. Mine is a little bit trying to reflect that sort of gratefulness. Like I have a difficult time being sad about losing the ALDS because I never expected us to be here. And so it was like, hey, whatever we're doing is gravy for me. I have the ability to keep a long memory and a lot of context. And so mine comes from the great songwriter Jason Isbell, who was a member of the Drive-By Truckers.
Who we quote constantly on this.
Basically every other week on this show. But hey, why wouldn't you quote the guy who writes the saddest songs in the world? And so he wrote this amazing song called Something More Than Free that's sort of about being grateful for what you have. But the song is actually about like being grateful, but then things occupying your time so much that you don't have time to show that you're grateful. So it's an interesting element of like the song's really about his dad and who works really, really hard and can't go to church and show the kind of thankfulness he normally would because he's so tired from working all the time. And the line is, I don't think on why I'm here or where it hurts. I'm just lucky to have the work. And I was trying to think of a sentiment from a song that sort of expressed this notion of like, hey, yeah, I'm sad and it hurts that we lost. But I also feel very lucky that we made it. You know, like I feel very appreciative that this team is now headed in the right direction. It looks like that they're run by a competent front office, that they have good coaching and all these sorts of stuff. And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I'm just lucky. I feel lucky that we have that now because I remember what it was like to feel like we had no direction at all. And so
that's the biggest takeaway I'm taking from that loss when people were talking about. I heard a lot of that. I heard a lot of like mentioning of, well, we didn't think we were going to be in the playoffs. This is so much better. Like we love the turnaround and all that. But that wasn't the thing that gave me the good feels. It was the feeling like the front office has a plan and executes a plan and can develop players and can identify players that can be developed. That has been has made me feel so much better about the organization than I ever would have. And I put that out there on Threads. I said, the one thing this season does for me is it gives me confidence in the organization that I haven't had in a very long time.
Yeah. And if you read the Substack that I put out this morning, earlier today, I spend half of it talking about like reasons I'm optimistic for the future. And the top 2 or 3 are all devoted to things like that, devoted to things like, you know, the ability to develop players. Like that number 1 on the list, I think, is like the coaching and player development and its huge strides that it's made. Like that's the number 1 thing that makes me optimistic about the future. And there are so many other things that are just like front office and personnel related that make this Royals team really interesting. And I think that sort of have gotten them to the place where it looks like their sustainable future of winning is in place. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxshire of West USA Realty. Phoenix has all of our favorite things: year-round golf, year-round baseball, and Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Whether you want to buy your dream retirement home or just stay a while and catch spring training, Eric can help you find the perfect house. We've known him for 30 years and trust him far more than we even trust each other.
I don't know. I think I could probably trust Mark if I needed someone to draw police attention or maybe help me start a meth lab.
That's me. I'm like the Walter White of my neighborhood. Eric does long-term rentals for the snowbird crowd and home sales and purchases for those who want to stay a while longer. Are you a baseball player or parent who needs a place in the Phoenix area? Eric will help you find the perfect spot fast. You want to spend your days shanking golf balls into the great beyond? Eric knows the golf scene like Mike knows the lyrics to every Adele song, even the non-hits. Find Eric online at ericoxer.com if you can figure out how to spell his name. ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Even if you're just curious about what he can do for you, he's 100% no pressure, one of the best people we know.
And he'll slow dance until you fall asleep in his arms, which I've done.
Today is the day of days. When the season ends, Mike and I face the music of our preseason predictions with dignity and a stoic resignation that I'll probably
dignity.
Lose.
We've never dignity. Nobody's ever blamed us of having dignity.
So let's get to it. Let's get into these. Alex Duvall, our good friend, joined us for these preseason predictions. So we'll get to show you all what he said as well.
We can throw him under the bus for free.
He'll look ridiculous by proxy or in absentia, and so we'll get him in there too. But let's start with. I can't believe this one was first.
By the way, we need to go back. We need to go back here. I am the undefeated champ. I win this every year.
So I think this is what, the third year we've done this probably?
This is our fourth year, I think.
Fourth year, maybe? So Mike has, yes, in fact, won every time up to this point. Though I haven't tallied these up. Mike, please keep track for me.
I will. I'm going to be highlighting when I win and yeah.
All right, good. Okay. But I think I got a better chance this year just having glanced over them. So we
do.
started with a prediction on the number of plate appearances Nick Prado would get. I actually haven't looked to see, but I know the answer.
It's definitely under. It's definitely under that number.
It was Nick Prado over under 450 plate appearances. All of us chose under, and we were all correct. All right, good job us. Way to go, Mike, Alex, and Mark. We hit that one right on the head. Yeah, Nick Prado, a disappointing year for him, I'm sure. A lot of questions about whether or not he'll ever be a Major League Baseball player at this point, or at least one who sees consistent playing time. Can he hit the ball hard enough? Can he strike out less than he does? He didn't show it this year. We'll see what the future holds for him. Our prediction number 2, Vinny Pasquantino over under a 125 weighted runs created plus. Mike said under, but barely. Alex said exactly correct. So he thought we would hit 125 exactly. I said over. Mike, you were in fact correct. I'm pretty sure.
You are right. I won. It was 108. I just checked. It's 108.
Okay, good.
Big win for Mike again. Getting out to a big lead here.
Wait, okay. I still want to know how I did. So we'll come back and chat him up later. Okay, Bobby Witt Jr. was the subject of our next prediction. We said Bobby Witt Jr. over under 5.5 F-WAR. Mike went under because he has no faith. I went over and Alex went over. Alex and I were correct and Mike was wrong. Yes, we love to see that. Mike being wrong is my favorite thing. Mike, what do you say that we let if we have a tiebreaker going into the last one, which is the Royals record, closest gets the win. That's our tiebreaker.
Well, that's because you were closer.
No, I have no clue. I haven't looked at him.
Yeah, you are. I can tell you that.
Okay, good. Michael Garcia over under 400 slugging. I guarantee we were wrong about this.
We all said over. There's no way
he went over. There's no way he went over. I'll check to make sure, but I'm 100% sure that he did not. No, he was not even close. He was closer to 300 than 400. So we were all wrong on that one, including you, Alex. I know you're listening. Mike and I were wrong on this one. Alex was right on this one. The next one focused on Nelson Velasquez. We had a lot of hope for him as a slugger coming into the year. He struggled there for a while. Nelson Velasquez over under 28 home runs. He did not go over. He went under.
Now, how many did he hit in AAA though?
Well, no, we're not playing that game. We're not playing that game. I'll look it
Damn
up, but we're not combining AAA stats and Major League stats. And if we did,
Yeah.
we'd probably be sad about it. He hit
Yeah.
8 home runs at the Major League level in 230 plate appearances, which is way fewer than he hit last year in only 179 plate appearances at the Major League level. And so sad to see him not produce as much as we'd hoped, but he didn't. So
Still won the
next
trade,
prediction,
though.
still won that trade. Absolutely won that trade. Yeah, still worth it. And he's not. The book is not closed on Nelson Velasquez. He's still only 25, 26 years old. So we'll see what he ends up doing next year. For our next prediction, we focused on Cole Reagans. It looks like we switched to the pitching at this point. Cole Reagans over under 140 innings pitched. Mike went over. Alex went under. I went over. He, of course, went way over 140 innings pitched.
Like 40 some innings over that, didn't he?
More than that, yeah. He ended up around 180, I think. Let's see if we can find out exactly how many for our curious listeners. He threw 186 innings, 186 and a third innings this year. So, yeah, we were right there. I went and took the bearish one on this next one and ended up losing because of it, which is unusual. Usually I'm the one who's filled with hopium, and as a result, I overestimate the Royals. Mike usually underestimates.
I'm the pessimist.
He's the pessimist among us. Next, we went to Seth Lugo. Over under 4 ERA for him. Mike went under. Alex said over barely, and I said over barely. He went under by a full run. He had a 3 ERA exactly. And so he went under. It was great to see. That was one of the great drivers of the Royals season, was his big-time success alongside Cole Reagans, Michael Wacha, and Brady Singer did pretty well as well. That really carried the Royals to their playoff appearance. This next one we're really going to have to look up because I have no clue on this one.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. Brady Singer, over under 85% combined sinker slider usage. Mike said over, Alex said over, and then hello bullpen, and then I said under. And so, Mike, what was the actual combined?
You get the win on this one. It was 81 or 81.6 was the combined sinker slider usage.
Barely. Thank you, four-seamer.
Yeah, he did the four-seamer 11% of the time, and that's really what did it. Sweeper 5% of the time, but and the changeup a lowly 1% of almost 2% of the time actually.
Changeups. Brady Singer hates your guts. But yeah, that's a win for me, so I'll take it. Need everyone I can get. Let's see. Next up was Alec Marsh, our boy, friend of the show, Alec Marsh, who had a much improved year this year and should be credited for that. Pitched pretty well for the Royals for about half a season. Alec Marsh over under 1.6 home runs per 9. Mike, do you have that one pulled up?
I don't yet. Give me just a second. I can find it. Home runs per 9. He was way under.
Way under. Great job. And this
Wait, hang on. I take it back. He was, what was it again?
1.6.
He was under. He wasn't way under. It was 1.33. He was way under in AAA.
Yes, he was in his 19 AAA innings. Yes, but he was still under 1.33 home runs per 9. We all got that one right. So, Mike, give us all credit for that one. Alec Marsh, that is one of the biggest reasons he had a better year this year. Lowered his ERA by more than a full run to 4.53, and actually his FIP and expected FIP were even lower than that. And so he was able to give the Royals 1.4 F4 this year, looking pretty decent in 130 innings. You have to say thank you. It'll be interesting to see what they choose to do with him throughout the rest of or next year. If he, I imagine they'll let him compete for a starting rotation spot. They'll do him that, but if he's not working out, they may decide to try him out in the bullpen next year, which would be an interesting move with his given his profile. Next, we went to the bullpen. James McArthur, you recall, came into the season as the Royals' closer, and so we decided to over under the number of saves that he would have at 15. 15 saves for James McArthur. I haven't looked, but I imagine he's under.
You are wrong.
I'm wrong.
He got 18 saves.
Oh my God! I thought I was going to win this one. That's probably the one that cost me the thing.
No, I think you're still up one, and you're going to win the overall record one.
Okay.
I mean, you're not going to win the overall record one because nobody was close.
Yeah, none of
But
us are close, but I did get a better one than you. I was closer than you, and that's all that really matters.
well, not
Uh,
really. We said if it was tied, that we
yeah.
would let that one decide.
Well,
I don't
I
know
don't
if
know.
it's tied
Is
or
it
not.
tied? All right, let's go back and
Let's
add
go
these
back
up.
and see.
All right.
Let's see. One for you and me on that one, on Prados.
You better be keeping track because I'm not adding any of this up.
I know your brain doesn't do adding or
Subtracting.
human contact, anything. Let's
Oh,
see.
I hate.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for me. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Five.
5 for you.
I
Who's the
told
winner
you.
again?
I
Who's the
told
winner
you I was losing.
again?
Damn it.
Again,
Uh,
every year.
damn it. I
It's
was
like
so
it's a
close this
tradition.
year.
It's a tradition like none other. Me kicking your ass in the preseason predictions shall continue to thrive.
How did he
Okay.
get to 18 saves? I swear
I
he
have
was
no
garbage.
clue. No
That's
clue. I
just
really thought I lost that one too. 18 saves. Unbelievable.
it turns on that one. We will recap the record for everybody so that you
18
can
saves.
revel in our humiliation here. Record was Mike predicted a record of 74 and 88. He of course
Always the
was off.
pessimist.
Alex was the most optimistic among us. He went 79 and 83. And then I was in between those two, but closer to Alex. I went 78 and 84. They, of course, ended with 86 wins. Mike, do you know the loss total? 86 and
You're asking me to do
70
math?
something.
Ugh.
I don't know. We've already established that neither of us can count, add, or subtract. And so forget that
86
notion.
and 76.
86 and 76, 10 games over 500. What a turnaround. Mike, you are once again the champion of our postseason. What do we call this? Like our predictions game?
I don't know, but I think we need a trophy, and I'm just going to hang on to it.
I think every year I keep promising to make you a trophy, and every year I keep forgetting out of toilet paper rolls or something. Every year I keep forgetting, and it's not really I don't forget. I just decide this is not worth my time, and so that there it is. We are going to give out some superlatives for the end of the season here as well, just really quickly. Royals weekly superlatives. Mike, let's start at the bottom and go with most improved first. Mike, who is our most improved Royal this year?
We went with Brady Singer. Okay, he goes from a 5.52 ERA. We know the big turnaround was due to the starting rotation, and then people always point to Waka and Lugo, but that meant Brady Singer being better, and it also meant Alec Marsh being better. And we really need to, and Lorenzen, bringing him in at the end to start in that fifth spot was big too, and he was very good as well. But I think we really have to point to those two. Alec Marsh, big step forward, and he was able to hold his own in at least the first half. He did very well, and that's important. But Brady Singer went from a 5.52 ERA to a 3.71. He pitched 20 more innings than he did last year, and he was worth a half a win by Fangraphs count, more than what he was last year. So although he still threw sinker slider over 80% of the time, the four-seamer does help him against lefties a little bit. The sweeper does help him just get guys guessing a little bit more. And so Brady Singer may have made himself some money this year.
He definitely made himself some money.
Because he's going into his last year of arbitration. And if he can, especially if he can repeat that again next year and the Royals don't deal him this offseason, he's going to get some serious looks because he's always been somewhat pretty durable. And so if he can do those things and continue to pitch every fifth day, Brady Singer is going to be a guy that gets paid at some point.
Don't be shocked if they trade him this offseason. I'm just saying. Mike, what about pitcher of the year? Who's going to be our 2024 pitcher of the year?
This was a tough one. Okay, this was a tough one. Now, here's the other thing. We could have picked Bobby Witt Jr. for most improved.
For pitcher of the year, for most improved, for all.
We could have picked him for all of these almost. We went with Seth Lugo over Cole Reagans, just barely. Lugo, 3.00 ERA, 206 and 2/3 innings pitched.
And that's what really got it.
That was the separator.
That was the separator.
3.25 FIP. He was steady Eddie all year long. I can think of like one game where he was out before the fifth inning. Like the guy was everything that this team needed. We talked about they need consistency in the starting rotation. They need guys that aren't going to blow up in the first, like Singer had a tendency to do, like Brad Keller did all the time, like Alec Marsh did too many times, like Daniel Lynch did when he had opportunities. we needed somebody who was going to come in and give you a professional start no matter what. And both he and Waka are those guys, but Lugo just did it at a little bit higher level more consistently throughout the year than Waka did. And then, of course, Cole Reagans was also fantastic, but we're giving our pitcher of the year to Seth Lugo. It'll be good to see him again next year.
Yeah, I think the big thing to say about Lugo is not only was he everything they needed, he was 2 or 3 times what they could have expected. I think you think about like what would have they have been happy with? They'd have been happy if he threw an with an ERA in the low fours for 180 innings. They'd have been tickled 3 shades of pink, and they would have called that contract worth it. To get this out of him is like found money. They just like it's like they were walking around and they picked up a diamond. You know, it's just crazy how much more value he provided than the contract that they gave him. And it's crazy that we now have a front office that can find that sort of thing. It's great. We went with a defensive player of the year as an award. Mike, who's our defensive player of the year this year?
We went with Kyle Isbell, the anchor of the outfield. And although his playing time was a little more limited because he was more rotational because of offensive concerns, he was still 10 outs above average and in the 95th percentile. Kyle Isbell will always and forever play you a well above average center field, and that is a good thing. The second part of the year, he hit a little bit better as well, but when it comes to outfield defense this year, especially outside of him, they weren't great in the corners defensively. And so, and then of course you have Bobby. Bobby could have been in there as well. Michael Massey, when he could play second base, played a competent second base. And of course, Michael Garcia plays a competent third base as well. But, you know, Kyle Isbell is when he's out there, you don't have to worry about the center part of the field. And so we're going with Kyle Isbell for our defensive player.
And what it really does is it allows you to play some guys in the corners who aren't there for their defense. Now, sadly, Hunter Renfroe, MJ Melendez weren't really there for their offense much either. And so they're going to have to look at the corner outfields this offseason. But to be able to have a guy like Kyle Isbell in center field really opens up some options for you and ensures that you're going to have a lot of ground covered out there in a big outfield, the biggest outfield in baseball. Offensive player of the year. This one's going to be a real surprise to everyone. Mike, who's the offensive player of the year this year?
We went with B-Dub-J. Bobby Witt Jr. Had one of the best, had the best offensive season in Royals history. And that includes George Brett's 1980 MVP season. It really does. I mean, that was a fantastic season, and they're neck and neck in that. But people will say, well, Bobby only hit 332. Do you know how many guys? He still won the batting title. I mean, the hitting is not the same as it was in 1980. So to hit 332, and then he had an on base of 389 and a slugging of 588, he was worth 10.4 FWAR. 10.4.
Do you know how rare it is?
Highest in Royals history.
Oh yeah. That's why he's the MVP.
Like,
but we're just talking about his offense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just talking about his offense.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable. 32 home runs, 125 runs scored. He played in 161 games.
Do you know how often somebody scores more than 100 runs and drives in more than 100 runs? That is not a very frequent occurrence. And yet he's out there just getting it done with his legs, with his bat. What an offensive performance from that guy.
Yeah, it was next level, and we're hoping to open the year next year with that. And yeah, I'm excited to have him come back and be the anchor of the lineup.
Speaking of that, here's the most anticlimactic MVP ever. Who's the MVP?
It's going to be Bobby Witt Jr. yet again.
No,
he also had
the house.
Since you wouldn't let me talk about his defensive stats in that offensive player of the year, he also had 16 outs above average in the most important defensive position outside of maybe catcher on the field. 99th percentile in outs above average for shortstops. The guy is he's a dynamo all around baseball player, and with Shohei Ohtani not pitching, he's the best all around baseball player in the game.
He was worth 10.4 FWAR. Just go and look. There's only been like 30 some, I think. I'm going to go check real quick. But there have not been that many 10 FWAR seasons in all of baseball. I'm talking baseball history.
And when you read the list, it's like...
How many 10 FWAR seasons do we have?
It's like the elite of the elite. It's like Willie Mays, Jimmy Fox. you know,
yes.
I don't even know. Did Judge stay up there this year? Was he above? I'm sure he was this year.
He's
talking
Ohtani's
and just
he had an FWAR over 11 this year.
Jeez.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, here we go. Split seasons. So how many seasons have we had? 10 F4. That's all. That's this year. I'm looking for all time. Hold on one sec. Okay, here we go. All time. It's taking a second to load. This is how many seasons there have been all time in Major League Baseball. It takes so long that it takes my computer, which is very fast, time to load. And we can cut all this out if you want to, Mike.
It's up to you. But I just like when you talk about he's playing in a time when you have Aaron Judge, who's, up there with him, and Shohei Ohtani. But when you're talking about the best players in the game, you're talking about those three guys. Shohei Ohtani, Bobby Witt Jr., Aaron Judge. Okay, now there are other great players in the league, but that's the Kansas City Royals. You have a top 3 player of his generation if he continues this.
So here's to give you some context. There have been 56 10 F4 seasons by position players in the history of baseball. Okay, only 56. Now think about that. That's since 1871, and that's everybody who's ever played baseball, their seasons. He has one of the 56 best seasons ever. His 2024 is tied with Rogers Hornby's 1927 with 10.4 F4 and is just behind Willie Mays' 1964 season. Okay?
Jeez.
When you're in there with names like Rogers Hornsby and Willie Mays, he's a couple behind Barry Bonds' 1993 season. He's a few behind Babe Ruth's 1928 and 1930 seasons. When you're in that kind of company, you are that kind of player.
Even if you only do it once, listen, that is insane. Like just to do that one time is insane. And if you don't have a season where Aaron Judge does what he did, I mean, those other guys, those are all MVP seasons, every single one of them, pretty much. I mean, except for whoever had to play. There's probably a guy who had to play with Babe Ruth who's saying the same thing,
Right.
Like,
yes, that definitely happened.
But
Judge's
just so
is the 19th best season ever by a position player.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable year for both guys. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All in Physical Therapy. You already know that All in Physical Therapy gave our mom Godzilla calves. But what you don't know is that mom loved her experience there because of the personal attention she got from Tommy and the staff at All In. They guarantee a personalized one-on-one experience to suit the needs of patients recovering from total joint surgeries, sports injuries, or any kind of injury or pain.
I actually don't feel pain anymore. Just loneliness and gas.
All in Physical Therapy is owned and operated by Tommy Freever with locations in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. But most importantly, they're in network for nearly all insurance providers.
Thank God, because I got to get someone to help me with this dislocated tailbone. Do not ask.
Don't ask that for that story. It's darker than it sounds. If you're a high school athlete recovering from injury or someone bouncing back with a brand new hip or knee, check out the best physical therapy in the KC Metro at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com, or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. Obviously, we don't have any games to preview, but the Royals have an offseason coming up that will present an opportunity to improve the roster and make another playoff push next year. Mike, looking at the offseason, what do you think are the big goals for the Royals?
I hope their big goals are to add consistency to the lineup and still some depth to the bullpen. That's those would be my number one. If you don't get the bullpen depth, okay, that's you can live with that. You can work with some stuff in season for that. You have got to get this lineup more consistent. And what I mean by that is you have to go with guys who take really good at bats. And I know people are going, well, Mike, you just want people to walk all the time, blah, blah, blah. We like to put the ball in play and hit it. I'm not even talking about walking. I'm talking about a plate appearance that is consistent and is going to be something that you're not disappointed in because the guy swung at 3 straight pitches that were out of the zone. And he's part of the problem one night because nobody took any pitches and the starter went 8 and we scored no runs. I need a guy or two who can add consistently good plate appearances to this lineup.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people are going to talk about the fact that they're probably going to target some offense in this offseason. It's really tough to go out and pay for offense in the free agent market because it's so in demand. But I think you're right. They're going to look for, I just put depth, depth, depth. And depth is in all ways across all things. I don't think that you're going to look at them and say, okay, they're going to go out and sign a heart of the order hitter. That probably won't happen because they're so expensive. And when you try it, like you did with Hunter Renfroe, when you try and get second rate, third rate, washed up, it just doesn't work. And so don't do that again, right? Try and find a hitter who you think can show consistency as your 7 hitter. Make him a 105 weighted runs created plus player. Like, shoot for the dudes who were just above average, right? If you can find somebody like that to provide some depth for your team, to create competitions at places like third base, at places like, in the outfield rotation, in the corner outfields, that sort of thing, then I think you're fine. I think another goal of this offseason will be get Michael Garcia on track, right? One of my big disappointments for this year, like we said, hey, the Royals need a lot of things to go right. One of the things they needed to go right that didn't was Michael Garcia takes a step forward. He did not. If anything, he took a step backward. And they need to help him say, hey, Michael, you're not going to winter ball. We're just going to work with you this offseason on swing decisions, on pulling the ball in the air, on getting stronger, on all these different things that are really going to help his profile as a hitter, because it's not working right now. A singles hitter who only gets singles 23% of the time is not really a valuable offensive product. Let's talk about the big offseason question in my mind is Michael Wacha. Will he or won't he come back with the Royals? He has a player option for, I think, $16 million for next year. Mike, do you think the Royals will find a way to bring him back?
I give that about a 30% chance, and that would happen by basically, I think he's opting out. He's going to opt out, but they may negotiate with him to say, hey, we're going to opt out. We're going to pay you, three for a year or two more than what anybody else is going to give you, or we're going to give you more money for the same amount of years. Because if you can make your offer as attractive as any other one he's going to get, or even slightly more, he's going to stay because he knows here. He's got everything set up that he needs here. I think his permanent home is probably in St. Louis, if I had to guess, in or around St. Louis, because he spent so many years there. And so you have some advantage to keeping Michael Wacha in that, one, he knows he can have success here because he did it. And so you have a chance to keep Michael Wacha, but I think it is going to require still, like, he's going to be a free agent. And so you're going to have to present a package that's more attractive than other teams. The thing I love about him is what I loved about him when they signed him initially. He provides a consistency and a know what you're getting to this rotation. And that is huge for this rotation.
Yeah, some of it will depend on other things that they're going to do. Like, do they decide to keep Brady Singer? Are they going to trade him or something like that? If they decide to trade him, that might free up some money for Wacha or something like that.
And how they feel about a Kyle Wright, and a Daniel Lynch,
and Chris Bubich, and whether or not he's going to go back to the rotation and stuff like that.
Noah Cameron, how they feel about him having an opportunity in the back end.
Yep. I think they're going to try and get as much pitching depth as possible. I put it at about 20%. I think Wacha could definitely get more on the market, but he may see the Royals as a chance to make money and play for a potential winner. I think that will matter to him. I think it'll matter to him that it's competitive baseball, that he wants to play for a winner. And so the Royals might represent that opportunity and an opportunity to stay where he already is, already has a home, has a friend in Seth Lugo who pitches here, and some other guys. And so I think that those marginal things might help, but I don't think he'll opt out. I think if he opts out, he's gone. I think if they may renegotiate his deal and then they tack on the couple years, and otherwise I think,
or maybe they just say, hey, you don't opt out, we'll give you the $16 million, and then we'll give you a player option for next year at another $20 million or whatever.
I don't think they'll do that because he won't want to go year to year, right?
Yeah.
He'll want the security of multiple years, but if they're willing to be the one who does it, if they say, hey, we love what you did for us, how about we give you 3 more years or 2 more years or something like that? You take the player option, you get 16, we'll give you another 16 for 2 more years, meaning another 32 on top of the 32 we already gave you if you stay here, right? Something like that might get it done because honestly, he can go to the open market and then he's open for everyone. But I don't know that he's going to get a lot more than 16 million a year. He might get a little bit more, but I don't know that anybody's giving him over 20 million a year. You know what I'm saying? And so because of the past injury risk, because nobody wants to pay for somebody's best seasons, which this might have been his best year. And so we'll see if that ends up being the case. But there's a question about whether or not Walker will come back. Mike, do you have any free agents that you hope the Royals might target this offseason?
I do. I hope they're going for one of those kind of middle of the order corner guys that can provide stability. My first one that I would look at and talk to is Anthony Santander, the outfielder for the the Baltimore Orioles. Switch hitter, provides power. Now, this is going to be probably a situation where you're paying for his best year because he had his biggest power output this year. I think he hit over 40 home runs, if I'm not mistaken.
He did.
But he's a guy that you're going to be able to count on and play in every single lineup. And he's not going to play you an embarrassing right field, although it's not going to be a good right field in any way. Now, if he's not there, maybe you go down to Teoscar Hernandez or Tyler O'Neill. A lot of people have been talking about Tyler O'Neill. I'm a little scared of him because I think, his production has been a little inconsistent for me for a guy who's also 30, I believe, years old. And so I would like to see any sort of guy like that. You might even get creative and go down to a designated hitter type and see if you can't somehow work him into a lineup and then, patch over with somebody in right field. The guys I was kind of thinking of in the designated hitter pool, maybe a Jock Peterson, something like that would be interesting to me. He's got a mutual option, but if the club decides not to go with him or he decides to bail, then maybe you get somebody like that. But I would be going for one of those corner outfielders for sure.
Okay. I think one of the outfielders I'm looking at is, and this is a long shot, right? But if Cody Bellinger opts out, which I don't think he will, because I don't think he played well enough last year to turn down the 27.5 million or whatever it is his option might be. But if he opts out, then he'll be on the market, and they should look into him. He had a somewhat down 2024, but if they could get him under 20 million a year, it might be worth it. And you might be able to say like, okay, he can play center field for us when we don't want Kyle Isbell in there, but we can also put him in right field and feel perfectly fine and really good with the defense because he's probably a very good right fielder. And then we can say, okay, now we have a Salvi, a Bellinger, a Vinny Pasquantino, and a Bobby Witt Jr. in the middle of the lineup, and that looks a lot better, And so that would be cool. That's a long shot, like I said. Other than that, I like Santander. I think that would be a good option. I don't want Teoscar Hernandez. O'Neill, I'm a maybe on, but I think their best option might be actually trading Brady Singer and seeing if they can get a young hitter for him, because they might feel better about their starting pitching. If they end up getting keeping Waka, they might feel really good about their starting pitching, and so maybe they could bring in a bat that way. That's just an option. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with our Just About Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, it's been a wild week. What has been going on for you outside baseball?
Oh, I have started taking like 15-minute walks while I'm at work. So as a teacher, I don't get a lot of time. I get a 40-minute plan period, right? And so they call it a plan period, but it's really just 40 minutes off to do all the other work that you have to do, which is like a million things. It's still not enough time, but I've been prioritizing my health, mental and physical, in that 40 minutes and just taking 15 minutes of it and just walking around our campus, which, it's not huge, but I can do like a lap around our school building or 2 laps. And it's been so good for me, mentally mostly, that I'm just recommending it for everyone. If you get some time at work, see if you can sneak out of whatever building, or if even if you work outside, just go find another place that isn't close to where you're working and go take 10 or 15 minutes to be away from your work. I don't listen to music. I don't listen to anything when I do it. I just go walk to breathe fresh air and be away from, you know, my actual job. And it's really, I mean, it's done wonders for me. And I do that pretty early in the day. And the rest of my day tends to go a lot better when I do that. I have a much better perspective on it when I go do that. And so I'm recommending taking something from your break and going outside for 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's literally how I wrote my dissertation. As I would write for an hour and a half, and then I would go walk for 15 minutes, and then I would come back and write for another hour and a half, and I would just keep that cycle going the whole time. It's something I recommend to a lot of writers. It's something I recommend to a lot of people. It's just very useful for your brain chemicals, but also for your mental outlook. It's great. Love it.
And if you ever read about like some of the most famous scientists in the world, like ever, they almost all did this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they almost all would just go on really long walks. Mm-hmm. And it's all right, cool.
Great way to think. I'm talking about socializing because I'm excited to socialize next week. My partner and I have a Halloween party coming up that we've sort of been thinking about and preparing for and all this sort of stuff. And I'm getting excited for socializing with people. And I'm starting to realize that I think like last week or the week before that, we talked about like an issue of young people and like their inability to socialize and stuff like that. And it reminded me that like sometimes I feel uncomfortable socializing, but also how important it is to do. You know, it's important to mix it up with other people. Like, and so I'm excited to sort of have people over, get a chance to catch up with them, talk to them. I got a chance to socialize with a really good friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in like 5 years. This last week when we went to the Royals game together, and it was just so great to catch up with him and the other friend that he brought, who I don't know very well, but I've met a few times, and I got to see him again and say hi and everything, and it was just great. And I'm excited for the socialization. It's a fun, important part of people's lives, and we got to have those face-to-face interactions. I think as I get older and older, especially being a man, I'm sort of encouraged in weird and sort of silent ways to not have friendships and to not interact with people. Like there's like this conception of the, man in his late 30s, 40s, 50s of kind of just like a loner. He just hangs out by himself and sits in his chair and grumbles or something, like,
hey,
but
that's
it's
me.
like, yeah, basically. But you go out to concerts with friends and you go do things. And I think we got to really encourage, especially men, because to like have friendships and maintain those friendships and socialize. And it can be somewhat anxiety producing a little bit to start, but when you're in it, it's great. It's fun. And it's great. So I'm excited to socialize this week. Looking forward to that. Hopefully you all can get out and have some fun with friends as well sometime soon. We will not be back next week. We will be back in 1 month-ish unless something happens, news breaks or something like that. And so make sure you're subscribed to the Royals Weekly Substack if you want to get weekly episodes on Thursdays. Otherwise, we will see you in 1 month. Thank you so much for joining us here on Royals Weekly, presented by Bet Online. I'll be happy to see you. It was a great season. It'll be a great off season. Continue to listen here at Royals Weekly. We'll see you in 1 month. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.